So if I go to, I'm like, do I say the name or not?
Say it.
Okay, I will.
People were outraged about it. LeBron James got upset about it. Jay-Z got upset about it. And the reason why is because
If the baby was conceived in a way that someone else in society deems less than, you can murder that child. Do you think it ends with children in the womb?
Abortion has been the greatest racist weapon ever created.
What it is, what it ain't, it's your boy Carlton with another video for anything, everything, where I talk about anything I want and everything that comes to my mind. It's been a while. Good to see you guys again. As you can see what the video is, can a Christian vote Democrat? I've done a video on this already, but I see that this video was gaining some traction, and I'm guessing that they had a lot of good things to say, so I wanted to watch it and give a response to it. And I want to make a few disclosures before I start this video. Number one, I love discourse. I love when people disagree and they can come together and essentially not necessarily hash out their differences, but state their differences. Because at the end of the day, when you're making a statement, you're either right or wrong. So especially if it's fact-based. If it's opinion-based, and opinion. But if it's a fact-based statement, you're either right or wrong, especially when it comes to the topic of God. Something that's really been pissing me off when it comes to Christian discourse is our lack of love for one another. Like the fact that me and you can disagree on something, and our disagreement leads to me essentially feeling some type of way and, almost garnishing hate. And honestly, I'm not above criticism. That goes for me as well, because times I've been overly passionate about something and it has allowed for my feelings to be essentially manipulated to the situation. And that shouldn't be so. We're called to do more. We're called to be better. But without further ado, let's go into this video and see what they have to say.
You would have told me 5 years ago that I'd be on a podcast talking about the evils of children's hospitals. I would have said you're insane.
You don't want to find yourself fighting against God.
Come on,
You don't want to find yourself on the wrong side of history.
So if I go to, I'm like, do I say the name or not?
Say it.
Okay, I will.
people were outraged about it. LeBron James got upset about it. Jay-Z got upset about it. And the reason why is because
if the baby was conceived in a way that someone else in society deems less than, you can murder that child. Do you think it ends with children in the womb?
Abortion has been the greatest racist weapon ever created. Our nation is in crisis.
Yeah.
If you cannot see that our nation is in crisis, open your eyes. Our nation is in crisis. Obviously, we're in financial crisis, but more than that, America is in a spiritual crisis. We have women chanting in the streets, "My body, my choice," trying to fight for what is called women's rights. We have those that are half naked, parading down the streets, fighting for what they call LGBTQ rights. We now have rights for our children and for minors of the fact that they should be able to make a decision to mutilate their bodies without parental consent. There is a spiritual uproar that is taking place in America right now, that we need spiritual leadership. We need pastors, we need Christians that are being bold and courageous, not in an identity crisis. And that's the concern in this hour, is that does the church and our Christians still in this identity crisis? Where do I fit? Should I have a voice into this or not? And so I
have a question. We know that America is in a spiritual crisis, right? My question is, how exactly should Christians respond to it? Now, hear me out. We know that the great falling away must take place before Jesus comes back. And everything that's happening now is already prophesied to come about. So, obviously, we shouldn't necessarily change our life. And we should continue to serve God. We should continue to do the things of God. But how exactly, I guess, should we respond to America as a whole? Should we allow the falling away to happen because it needs to happen? Or should we essentially, I guess, try to combat it to slow it down? I don't know. Let me know what you think. That's just a question that just came into my mind. Should we essentially try to slow it down, or should we just allow things to take place all while simultaneously doing what we should do? Or if doing what we should do will essentially slow it down?
Like it's this pivotal hour that we do an episode like this because Christians are confused. They're confused on where to stand. Is our identity Republican? Is it Democrat? You're going to hear really, really clear today. Your identity should not be in either one. Your identity is that you are a son and daughter of Christ, period. And we're going to go into depth in that today. But we are leaning into this question. Can you still be a Democrat and a Christian today in 2024? But before I get into that, I felt like I was just supposed to be vulnerable, to lead in vulnerability and authenticity. Because the moment I say that, I know as a white woman, many people want to turn me off because we have been brainwashed that a white male or a white woman can't speak on some of the topics that we're talking about today because we're privileged and we don't understand. And there's been many times I've spoken out on my social media and IG, and I get messages from young people, a lot of times from Black women saying, you can't speak on this because you're white privileged. You have no idea what you're talking about. How dare you speak on this issue of abortion or fill in the blank. And my heart is for conversation. My heart is for unifying what I believe has been a strategic, demonic attack to divide the body of Christ, to divide us on a color of skin, which is so silly because we know we're part of this great priesthood, the race of Jesus Christ, as sons and daughters of him. The color of our skin shouldn't matter to hear each other out. But I wanted to have this conversation with some of you that might want to say, you know what, I'm going to stop this video. I'm not going to listen to her share this. And
We need to.
so for those that are listening, what Pastor
where this
Will
is coming
just
from.
said is abortion was literally birthed out of the most racist, wicked individuals to wipe out a people group, which we are still seeing lasting into 2024. We know it's Black babies that are aborted more than any other. I believe
Because it's targeted. It's more than
a target.
More than 75% of Planned Parenthood clinics are in minority communities. It's safe to say 80%. And there's not one Planned Parenthood clinic that's in a majority high school. All of them in the minority high schools. That says something. So there's targeting going on. Planned Parenthood itself, during all the height of George Floyd, they actually came out and acknowledged the the racist underpinnings of Margaret Sanger. They denounced her and all that. But so if you really want to denounce her, don't just take down her sign, stop her practices.
That's right.
In targeting
Obviously, when it comes to denouncing Margaret Sanger, they're trying to save face. But if you was really denouncing her, you would have denounced the practices that she intended to do and the goals she intended to do. But the goals she intended to do is still in practice right now. It's still going on right now. And it's still working towards her goal right now, which is obviously to target the Black race, which is why, as you heard what he just said, majority of them are in minority neighborhoods, targeting Black folks. And the number one people group that participate in abortions is going to be Black women.
the community. So anyway, that's
listen, if you are listening right now, abortion has been the greatest racist weapon ever created. We are talking about millions of minority babies murdered through abortion. And we're going to get into I want you to get into the euphemisms in just a second, because it's so powerful, the twisting.
You want to know what's so funny? Nah, it's not funny, but what's so crazy about abortion is the fact that when you kill one person, you really end up killing a generation. And it's so crazy. I was literally reading my Bible, right? And so in Leviticus 19, it's essentially saying that you should not pass your descendants through the fire to Molech. And then it hit me. I'm like, Hold up, wasn't they sacrificing babies to Molech? Why does it says descendants? And then it hit me, it's like, yo, as they do this, you're literally getting rid of not only your descendants but generations that would pass through them. So you're not just killing one person, you're killing thousands and hundreds and millions of people through one person. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Distorting of this, because I feel like there are so many young people and there are so many in minority communities that feel they're being defended by what has been portrayed as women's rights. They're fighting for our freedoms. They're finally fighting for our freedoms, not knowing this evil agenda that is behind it, that is not to fight for your freedoms. It is to destroy a race.
And the way they do that is all through the switching of words. This is why instead of abortion, they say reproductive rights. So they use a lot of words to essentially demean what's going on. They don't say killing babies, they say removing fetuses or removing a clump of cells. And even though fetus literally translate into small child or whatever, it's all words. It's all from taking words and making it mean less than what it really means. And this is how they're using deceptive words to get people to participate in this thing and make it, and essentially to demean it. And one thing I've realized as well is one of the key things that they do is if they're able to bring this human into a lower tier, into a lower level, it's easier to agree with it. So almost the same thing as slavery. The reason slavery was okay is because this person isn't even fully human, right? So there's nothing wrong with us forcing labor upon them, and now they're going to do the same thing when it comes to abortion. This person isn't even human. This person isn't even fully developed, right? They don't have the same value as me and you, right? They're not even fully human yet. This is why it's okay for us to do this.
I declare, let freedom ring loud to awaken faith and strategy in those that rescue more. And let this
As this
Yeah,
feels
but
like
let's cut through the
something that-
lies.
Yeah, so
Because
so people that it's our chance to make.
That's not true,
history.
though.
Yeah.
That's not true.
Yeah,
though. So
for sure, right?
you're making that this is an argument that I'm hearing,
Yeah.
but it isn't even true. Because let's take a black conservative woman. Let's talk about Winsome Sears. Who
Yeah,
is
she's
a
amazing.
brilliant
Yeah.
PhD,
Yeah.
black, strong conservative,
Yeah.
lieutenant governor of the state of Virginia.
Running for governor.
If she were to be running for president of the United States against Joe Biden, the same people who are saying, I need to vote for Kamala Harris because it's a history-making event,
Right.
would be excoriating Winsome Sears.
Exactly.
They would call her the
they
black
allowed
face
her to
of
get
white
that far.
supremacy.
Yep.
They would call her, which they have,
That they have,
in the New York
yep.
Times. They would call her a right-wing Christian nationalist. They would call her a threat to democracy. They would call her a danger to the United States.
Traitor.
They would call her a
Traitor.
race traitor. They would call her all of the things. So it isn't really about that. It's a spiritual battle.
It is.
And it's about the policies. And so I would say this to anybody watching. You might fool other people, but please don't fool yourself.
Yeah.
Like, understand
Don't
what.
be fooled
Don't
by
be
this
fooled
nonsense.
by the nonsense
nonsense
of these.
of,
Because if Kamala Harris and Donald Trump were to be abducted by Martians tonight, and they were to be, Democrats were to put in somebody else and Republicans were to put in somebody else, we'd be having the exact same arguments.
Yes.
Yep.
Because it is about the policies and the values that we're up against.
Can we,
Yes,
with that
100%.
being said, because I think we need to hit this too for those, I'm thinking about those
Yeah.
watching. The Republican Party, we are not saying the Republican Party does not have its demons.
Oh,
Right.
Yeah.
The Republican Party
100%.
had tottered on the life issue, but I do think that
Yes.
we need to, this is something I think we need to talk about today to kind of settle that because
Well, look at the
people-
RNC.
Well, just to let you guys
go
know
ahead.
too, the episode, and this is for everybody to hear. So if
Yeah.
you haven't listened to it yet, the episode before this one that airs, I went into it.
Yeah.
I went into it about Trump and the compromise
Yeah.
on abortion. We're going to
Yeah.
be doing a 3-day Esther's fast in prayer for America, for Israel, and for him to repent and to encounter the Lord.
Yes.
And so again, what you are saying right now, this is not saying, oh, Kamala, she's demonic and he's the righteous one.
That's right.
Like, no way. I have no, I mean, on the last podcast, I call him Nebuchadnezzar. I'm sure I'm gonna take off a whole lot of people at that comment. I really don't care
Don't care.
because it is what it
I think the Nebuchadnezzar is kind of actually a very good analogy, because even though Nebuchadnezzar was essentially a wicked pagan man, he still was used for the glory of God.
is. I could care less what he just said. Whose names are up there,
Yeah.
whose personalities, whose face, the color of skin. It's what we're talking about. And unfortunately, I think less people are talking about what's important around their dinner tables. They're having the conversation, Kamala versus Trump, instead
That's
of
it.
aborting millions of babies or life.
Yeah, children.
Anti-Semitism, hatred
That's-
Yeah.
towards
Or-
Jewish people,
or mutilating the next
fighting
generation.
for
Yeah.
yes,
Oh, and
mutilating
let's
the
ta-
next.
what about-
These are
what about book
important
bans?
things.
Yeah.
And I
all
don't
those
think
things,
yeah.
people even know how to wrap their minds, because honestly, the media is so powerful.
Yeah.
It is controlling
Like, let's
the
make
beliefs of a nation.
history
It's on
history.
purpose
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
they're not talking about these things.
I'm not talking about the
I'm sorry,
policies.
but not only is it abortion clinics that are planted in communities of minorities, but it's also, hey, the same thing Margaret Sanger did of calling up black pastors is what they
Yes.
were doing with COVID vaccinations. Get everybody to line up in your church and let's vaccinate the minorities. Let's vaccinate the elderly. And they are putting a bullseye on specific individuals that they feel like don't have a great enough value to still live or to reproduce.
Yeah.
This is evil and wickedness at the greatest. Talk about racism. What are you going to say, Pastor?
I just
Will?
want to say to this whole thing y'all was speaking to so eloquent about this attack on children. Jesus, when he said, fear not he who can destroy the body, but fear he who can destroy both the body and spirit in hell. That word for hell he used was the word Gehenna. It was the Septuagint for the word Hinnom, for the Valley of Hinnom. In the Valley of Hinnom, this is where they would offer up, sons and daughters. Israel would offer their sons and daughters to Molech and mutilate and burn, kill the children. So in other words, Jesus was basically saying the greatest, he could have used any other word for hell. He chose that word because the greatest revelation of hell on earth is the place where we mutilate and destroy our children. This is what we're resisting.
Yes.
This is what we're up against.
This is what we are resisting. I don't care that we're out of time. I want to keep going, so I don't want you guys
Yeah.
to feel pressure of the
Okay.
time right now, because I
Great.
want to keep going. You started hitting this topic of anti-Semitism,
Yeah, let's talk about that.
and I want to talk about it. I keep saying I can't believe what I'm seeing, and that I guess maybe I shouldn't be shocked, but that I'm glad that I still am, because it's tender and it is mourning what we're seeing in our nation right now. But when I'm seeing that schools and colleges, that Jewish students are being blocked off and intimidated from not going to their class, and that streets are being filled with people rioting and declaring gas the Jews, I am in shock. I am in shock, and I can't but question. And I want to ask you guys your opinion on this. If this were flipped, and this was gas the blacks, the browns, what would be happening in our nation right now?
Oh, but there'd be an outrage.
There'd be a civil war.
Yeah, people would be invoking Dr. King and other, movements, and people would be in the streets, right?
It's called selective justice.
But yes, it's selective justice, and what's happening with Jewish people right now, it's
Injustice.
mind-numbing. I mean, Dr. King took a strong stand against anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
And when he walked across the Edmund Pettus Bridge, he walked with Rabbi Heschel, who wrote a book called Our Legs Were Praying. He carried the Torah with Dr. King as they walked across.
Wow.
The Jewish community and
on.
African American community
Come
was so
on.
bound together.
Let's
But
go.
now we have
Yeah.
this time where you see there's this, just this resistance and this anti-Semitism that is creeping up and all these, African American movements, even some so older civil rights leaders. And I'm like, oh my God, Dr. King is probably turning over in his grave.
Yeah.
'Cause he took a strong stand against anti-Semitism back then, and we walked
Yeah.
together. And so it blows my mind.
Moral confusion is like a cancer. You can't have a little bit of it. You either
Yeah.
have it or you
Spreading.
don't.
Jeez.
So if
It's-
we're morally
It's gonna
confused
spread.
about giving porn to children, if we're morally confused about
Yeah.
puberty
Come
blockers for
on.
10-year-olds, if we're morally confused about abortion,
Yeah.
if we're morally confused about all of these issues, men and women's sports, things that are so commonsensical, then of course we're going to be morally confused about who is the evil in the Middle East, the free country of Israel
Yeah.
or the Nazi-like state of Palestine.
And this goes back to the church, unfortunately, with replacement theology.
Yes.
I mean, you have to look at the church and what we've taught, and people, they're
what we haven't
normalizing this
taught.
and what we have not taught concerning the Jewish people.
That's right.
But I've been blessed to work with women that are in bomb shelters all over Israel, and
Yeah.
we're, all
All of
the
our
things.
spiritual daughters is over there now.
But for me, it's like there needs to be an awakening right now that this Jesus is coming back for his Jewish bride. It's all going to end in Israel. Everything's going to end there. He's going to step his
Yeah.
foot there.
The New Jerusalem,
The New Jerusalem.
Revelation 21.
I just believe that this anti-Semitic spirit and this that Gaza, they're teaching that that the Jewish people is the oppressor. It's a false
Right.
social justice
Yes.
movement.
It is.
And we're standing on the wrong. You don't want to find yourself
on the
Come
wrong
on.
side.
fighting against God.
Come on, to
You
have
don't
No,
want to
exactly.
find yourself on the wrong side of history. So I'm challenging everyone, white,
Yes.
black, Asian.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't really view as people standing against Israel to necessarily mean standing against God. Because number one, we already know that the 12 tribes of Israel was dispersed. So there is no original Jews that's in the land of Israel. So it's not like you're essentially against the true chosen people of God. And now we know that there is no such thing as the true chosen people of God anymore because of the new covenant. So yes, we do know that there is a holy land, but at the end of the day, the bride of Christ isn't the descendants of the 12 tribes of Israel, but the bride of Christ is anyone that proclaims and believes in Jesus, right, and follows Jesus. So I just want to say that Israel isn't above criticism. So if someone has applied against Israel, the things that Israel is doing, their government is doing, etc., and I essentially stand against it, it doesn't mean that now I'm standing against God. I don't really see the connection, and I don't agree with that connection.
That we've
Come
got
on.
to make up our mind on this Israel issue, because I don't want to fight against the Lord. And so it is an outrage that Harvard, my city, New York City, Harvard, all of these campuses that have
Columbia University.
Columbia University, that you are allowing Jewish students to be locked out of the classrooms
Yeah.
on their campuses.
That's right.
There should be a moral
Yes.
outcry right now.
Well,
And-
and who's,
and
oh, I'm sorry. Go
I
ahead.
was just gonna say there has been no holding accountable.
No holding accountable.
But I would say I don't agree with essentially attacking Jewish students or anything like that. All I am saying is if I do stand against Israel, I'm not standing against God, right?
This. Here's the evil stances of the Democratic Party that contradict, not with our opinions, not with what we feel, but with biblically based Christianity. Okay? The Democratic Party is pro-abortion, murder, and child sacrifice. We say child sacrifice for a reason, because we want you to know that at this point, I may be getting ahead of myself right now in preaching, but in 2024, if you vote Democratic in this presidential election, you are aligning yourself with the worship of Baal, Molech, and Ishtar. Pastor de Havilland just said it. She said, choose who you are going to serve. The words of Elijah leapt in my spirit. He said the same thing to the prophets of Baal. Choose this day whom you're going to serve. So we're going to make it super clear for you. So I'm going to say it again. The Democratic Party supports pro-abortion, murder, and child sacrifice. We're seeing this even after the womb. We didn't get to get into it today. We have a lot of other episodes that you can watch that we go thick into this abortion issue. But they are pro-homosexual agenda, pro-transgender propaganda, pro-communism and socialism, pro-hate for Israel, pro-pornography in schools, pro-sex change surgeries on minors, pro-men in in women's sports, pro redefining biblical marriage, pro the destruction of the nuclear family, pro the worship of nature, or what we call globalists, anti parents' rights, meaning the children they think should be owned by the state.
That's right.
Anti-prayer and God in schools and in the public squares, pro-banning God and the Bible from the public square, pro-rights that come from government and not from God, anti-free speech, pro-unfair and unjust prosecution of political rivals, and they are clearly anti-absolute truth, as we have seen them questioning what even is the truth. The truth is Jesus. He is the only way. He is the truth. He is the life. Not to mention they are celebrating, like we have mentioned, parading, not just down the streets half naked in bondage wear with children, but they're opening bars and strip clubs and allowing children to come in as they are stripping. Pro-trans story hour in our kids' libraries. They have admitted they are after our children on purpose. They are brainwashing our children with all of these policies, in which I would furthermore to say are more than policies. It is worship of high places. It is worship.
Here's where I'll play devil's advocate. I wouldn't say all Democrats are pro everything that she just stated, right? Because the Democratic Party as well as the Republican Party is a makeup of completely different individuals, right? Just because two people align with a Democratic Party doesn't mean that they see eye to eye with everything. So I feel like there's a lot of things that she stated that a Democrat could say, well, this I don't agree with, right? And not only do I don't agree with it, but there's no essential Democratic agenda that is essentially trying to make this legislation, trying to make this law, right? Now, will majority of the people that do support and agree with these things, do they probably tend to lean Democratic and or liberal? Yes. But for example, I can, have a perception, I can have an opinion, and just because I lean to a particular party doesn't mean that that party is going to essentially try to make it legislation, try to make it law. Because at the end of the day, there is a lot of things that the state itself has the right to fight against, right? So whether it's certain things dealing with how they protect children, whatever books that they ban, etc., etc. So yeah, that's where I would play devil's advocate. I feel like right now they're listing a lot of things that's more so within the liberal movement, not more so the Democratic Party. And not just the liberal movement, but more so people that align with like BLM or LGBT activists, Marxist movements and things like that. So I at times I do feel like Christians and Republicans in general can demonize the Democratic Party more than what they portray. And it's strictly because you're taking the followers and you're placing the belief of the followers on the whole party within itself. And that I don't think is right. I think we need to view the Democratic leaders and not the Democratic followers and see what the Democratic leaders are attempting to push, see what the Democratic leaders see what their stances are, right? So going to end it here. And you let me know in the comments how you feel about this video. Like, comment, subscribe, answer the question. Can you be a Christian and a Democrat in 2024? Obviously, when it comes to the Democratic Party and the Democratic agenda, through history, priorities change, their policies change, same as Republicans. So obviously, it's not to say just a Democrat in general, but I guess more so within today's time. See you guys next time on Anything, Everything. Peace.